Hello and welcome. You've come to the Finding Your Voice platform, where we are aiming to bring everybody from around the globe to come together in one place where we can hear each other's stories through a time of social disconnect, distancing, self-isolation, and global lockdown. Today, my very special guest is Kurani Masters. He identifies as a 40-something male who's a writer and an author of 6 published books. His latest book, Conversation with Darkness, is an unedited and raw insight into the experiences of someone who is living with anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and clinical depression. Kurani is all about having open conversations around mental health and suicide, and he aims to help people to gain insight into what it is that is actually going on in people's heads. And Kurani, I can only say that this is so timely that we're meeting, because this is a time where I have a strong suspicion that we're going to see a peak in exactly those issues that you're talking about: anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, fear, and all those. Would you say that that would be correct?
Absolutely. And yeah, it's particularly difficult. Mental health is often invisible. You don't have necessarily something you can look at tangibly. And I think our government has certainly done some pretty good things around mental health. I haven't really seen much from what I've seen so far around the COVID-19 response in terms of supporting people with mental health issues. But so, yeah, it's definitely a time where there's going to be a lot of people who, even without mental health issues, are going to be feeling uneasy and feeling, what's going on. I mean, this is unprecedented in our lifetimes, and it's kind of a scary situation to be in.
Yeah, exactly. Now, tell me a little bit about your book, your latest book, Conversations with Darkness. This can be found on Amazon.com, and I believe under a pen name. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? And I'm so intrigued. Why the pen name?
Okay, so the book it's a whole bunch of just writings that I do whenever I'm depressed or anxious. And writing for me is one of the things that keeps me going. It allows me to get outside of myself and to understand myself better. Some of the things in the book are quite scary for someone who doesn't necessarily have mental health issues. And I was a bit nervous that my family might see it and either worry unnecessarily, freak out, or just simply not understand. Maybe a bit of judgment there. So I chose to do this book under my pen name, which is Carwyn C. Hughes. There's a story behind that, but we don't need to go into that. It's a Welsh name. So, but since I published the book, I've decided that I don't need to hide that from anyone, really. And so I make it no secret that I am that's my, what's the word I want? The other person, the other writer is me.
Yeah.
Words are failing me right now, which is ironic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to write that book and publish that book, actually, I should say, so that other people can see exactly what's going on in someone's head when they're really depressed or they're really anxious, and the way that the mind tends to narrow and focus on certain things, some of them not necessarily pleasant. For example, suicide is definitely one of the things that come up a lot in my experience with depression.
Yeah.
And it's, I differentiate between being suicidal and suicidal thoughts. I know that sounds maybe a little bit weird and complicated, but it's just, I'm not necessarily suicidal, but that's where my head is. And then other times I am, and then, but we work through it.
Yeah. And I think, we were talking just earlier, the whole concept of suicide is really scary. But it doesn't have to be, because that's a perception of it. You know, we go around thinking that, oh my gosh, if we're going to talk to our children about suicide, or we're going to talk to our friends about suicide, that it is going to happen. We are going to make them want to kill themselves. And it's like, well, actually, no, it's not like, talking about flying a plane is not going to make anybody who isn't already wanting to fly a plane want to fly a plane, for example. I mean, that might be a weak example, but and it's the same. Like, I love your thing about how you differentiated between actually feeling suicidal and having suicidal thoughts. It's the same as when somebody self-harms, when they're not able to, they don't feel anything because they are so caught up in whatever is going on for them emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever the deal is, that they don't feel anything anymore. And so they self-harm because they just want to feel something. They don't want to
True.
kill themselves. In fact, there's a fear, I don't want to kill myself, but I just want to feel something that is something other than the emptiness and the numbness that I am currently feeling. I just want to feel grounded again. I'm floating up here and I just want to come back down. And self-harm, for example, brings you down, because all of a sudden you've got something that you're not familiar with, that you're feeling, and you've just done it, and what does this mean? And now you hit the ground for a little bit. And I can only imagine that with suicidal thoughts, or contemplating actually doing it, it would be almost along the same lines, right?
Definitely. I mean, there's an element of wanting to escape, not life, but escape whatever's going on in your life. Like I've got some, I just feel like a lot of the time things are quite relentless, and that, like, I'm just always under the hammer. And there's sort of desire to, like, this needs to stop, but you can't really figure out how to do that. And so your mind goes, well, there tends to be only one direction that you think about, which is why support is so important. I might have to circle back to something because I've just totally forgotten what I was going to say, and I'm annoyed now.
Well, let's talk about support. We've got a time where we're all going to be in a position where we are now in a totally different environment. Okay? And we're in an environment that quite often potentially we're trying to escape from. A lot of the times when we're having our mental health issues, if I was to think about it, it would be in my house. And if I could leave my house and I can get outside, or if I can just go and be with my friends, or I can go and get out into nature, then I can escape for a moment whatever is going on in my head, generally speaking. And I mean, I imagine that would probably come into people who have had sexual abuse, people who are being physically abused, people who are struggling to cope and support their families, and they're feeling anxious about life. When they're out at work, they're feeling productive, they know that they're getting the money in. When anybody else with any other situation is at work, it's a time when, again, you can just shut off all the other rubbish that's going on in your head. But when you come back to your house and you can't escape that, and you're either with the perpetrators or you're with the people who you feel like can't see what's going on for you, and you feel like you can't speak to them, support really pops up there. I mean, how do you get through that? As I remember reading this article once. I used to be a high ropes course instructor, and there was this one article that we got brought to try and make us as instructors aware of, we're out there going, just go for it, climb the ladder, you'll be fine, just jump off the edge and just jump into fresh air, trust the ropes and everyone holding you, you're not going to come crashing down to the ground, and just grab the bar, it's going to be totally fine, right? To actually are going, well, that's really fine, but sometimes the person who's actually climbing up the ladder is so petrified that just to get 1 foot off the ground is enough for them, and when the child freezes up the pole and is holding on to it, they're holding on and they're stuck and they're frozen, because there is no way out for them except their survival mechanism, which means you koala that pole as tight as what you can, and you do not let go for fear of something really bad happening to you. And the article was titled, "Why Can't They See That I'm Crying Inside?" And
Wow.
that really hit home. I got really emotional reading that because it made me identify with what was going on in my life at the time. But it also made me go, I need to remember that in that situation, there's a kid climbing up the pole, and here I am going, go for it, go for it, go for it, and not once stopping to go, I wonder what's going on for that person. You know, they're not like the other people. They're not just climbing up the pole and jumping off and being like, yeah, they'll get me. It's fine. I trust everybody. That person who's
Yeah.
climbing up the pole and who is slowing down or stopping or frozen has got an entire other dialogue that's going on inside of their head. And so how do we, as the person's support network at home, so your support network at home or anyone else's support network, how do we as a support network come in, identify that actually you're not looking your usual self? I think maybe I just need to sit down with you and just go, hey, how's it going? And actually be open to whatever comes out of your mouth. I'm
Yeah.
having suicidal thoughts today, Mum. Not for me to panic, not for me to think, oh my God, my son's going to die today. It's not necessarily that. And I don't mean to be flippant about that at all. But to actually go, you know, son, I'm here for you. How can I help? Show me the way, you know, anything like that, right? I mean, that is support, isn't it, at times like this?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a real difficult one. As I mentioned earlier with mental health, and it's something we all know, is that it's quite invisible.
Mm.
And people like me are very adept at having this facade, and we can be the life of the party and smiling, but what's going on the inside, no one sees that.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I really wanted to publish those books, because you know it really can be quite invisible and very difficult to notice. I think I'm very adept at it, but I have had people in the past that have looked at me twice and went, you know, and that was at quite crucial moments. So that was very good. But
And
yeah,
sometimes it's those knight in shining armors or those angels or whatever that just come in at the right time to, I guess, give us an indication that we maybe with hindsight can see, where they go, you know what, I'm not going to let you drown right now. I am not going to let your hand go. I am not going to let you make any more cuts on your skin or to think any more suicidal thoughts, because you know what? If there's one person in the world who cares about you right now, it's me. And it's my job right now to not let you go down, because if you go down, I'm going down with you. And then you kind
yeah,
of go, okay, well, I can't let you come down with me. That's not fair. Okay, now what do we do? And then you open up that conversation, right?
definitely, yeah. I think that's the trickiest part is once it's open, then it's a lot easier. There are times when I've talked about some of these things inside of me that I don't really talk about in general.
Mm.
And when I have talked about it with people, it's just been a huge relief. It's like this narrowing that happens in your head, and like your sights narrow everything, and then all of a sudden it's like open again, and it's quite an incredible feeling, actually.
And so I guess we've got two streams of people right now who could be listening. One is the person who identifies with anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, bipolar, you know, whatever the issue is. Asperger's you mentioned, I didn't mention earlier, but you've got Asperger's as well. So we've got a whole pool of people who could identify with you, that could be looking to you right now for going, okay, how do I actually start that conversation? How do I trust the conversation? How do I take that next step? So that's one side of things. The other pool of people who are over here looking back this way are the support network, or the people who could be the support network. Okay, so the mums, the dads, the friends, the brothers, the aunties, the uncles, you know, whoever is there, to actually go, okay, well, I'm on the side and I've noticed that somebody in this pool who's in my close vicinity isn't always acting slightly different, always covering something up, and I don't know what it is. Something's off. And I saw a post they posted it all over Facebook, and it really was a little bit concerning. How do I open up the conversation? So you got two people wanting to open up the conversation, but nothing's
Yeah,
happening because there's fear on both sides about, what if I'm wrong? What if it fails? blah, 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 right? So what would be your suggestion for anybody who's really struggling with being at home, with the whole COVID thing, the fear of the unknown, perhaps we've already got an existing mental health concern. Where do we go to? How do we start this? How do we enter into the dialogue with people around us? What would you suggest?
I would say that the easiest way is just to start. For example, if you're the person on, perhaps the support person, you could be saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm feeling really," and it's say, "Look, I'm really feeling really scared about the situation," and bring it up that way, and then say, "How about you? How are you feeling?" And
Mm,
the person who is struggling with the mental health issues, they could start the conversation by say, rather than talking about themselves, because that's always the scariest part, say, "Oh, how are you feeling about the situation? Are you scared? Are you..."
yeah.
So, I mean, I've talked to people about it. It's kind of a weird sort of situation because it's scary. It's also exciting in a way because
Mm,
it's completely brand new. It's like we're in this dystopian novel or movie or something. It's an unusual place to be.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, I think just be absolute honest and upfront is the key. I don't think there's any real need to skirt around because, and we're good at doing that.
Mm,
It's cultural. I mean, you say, "How are you?" You answer, "I am fine." I mean,
right,
that's what you
good.
do. It doesn't matter if you're not fine, but you do. You know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's just about. I mean, nobody wants to be that guy or that girl. You know, "Oh gosh, you know, I'm not feeling good today." Blah, blah, blah. But there's a difference between that and going, "I'm really struggling
Mm,
and I'm scared," or, you know, "I don't know what to do." And I would love to just say to people, don't be afraid to say that.
mm.
But saying those words is actually quite hard.
It does take a high level of courage, and trust that you are going to be still in a safe, manageable, coping space that if they go, "I don't have time for that right now," well, you know what, just go and sort it out. When you
Yeah,
get that door slammed in your face, for them to then go, "Okay, well, if that happens, then that wasn't the person who I was meant to talk to. Now, who else am I able to open up to?" And it might be a favorite auntie, it might be, you know, your brother, your sister. It, it could even be journal writing. You know, it could be like what you've done. You write everything in your books. It's your way of healing. It's your way of sharing. It's your way of kind of, I guess, trying to maintain some sense of normality within something that feels like it is not normality. You know.
yeah. I think one thing that's really important and is not talked about or encouraged enough is self-compassion.
Mm,
That is like everything. I came off the top of my head, I can't think of it now, but I came across a brilliant woman. I'm annoyed I can't think of her name, who introduced me to the idea of self-compassion
mm,
for anxiety and depression, and it's literally life-changing. It changes how you relate to the anxiety. I mean, we're all really good at criticizing and beating ourselves up, and this is just a way of tempering that, and it really does change
mm.
everything. It's like, you know, when you're in that space, it's quite dark. Maybe, you know, like the dimmer on the light. It would be a good analogy. And
Yeah.
then you start treating yourself with kindness. Because I always say to people, just be kind to yourself. Um, because no, you know, you're the last person generally that you think of to be kind to.
Mm.
You know, I think most people are very kind to other people, but we forget ourselves. And then when you do that, all of a sudden it's like the light's been turned up again, and it's like, oh, I'm actually feeling pretty good now.
Yeah.
It sort of, it helps to make you, it brings you out of, when you're stuck in your head like that, where everything's happening to you, it helps you change and you become the observer, and you're actually, so you're not actually in it anymore, and it allows you to think a bit more, be less stressed, and just deal with day-to-day stuff, which otherwise might be very difficult.
Yeah. And with your analogy of turning that light up a little bit, you know, when it's turned all the way down, the light's still on, but it's dark. You can't,
Yeah.
it's like it's as if it was off. And sometimes when you are in depression, for example, your entire world just feels like it is weighing down on you, and you feel like you're in an incredibly dark space. You feel like you're smothered, you feel like you are underground, you feel like you're in a cave, locked up somewhere with the devil at your door. It's just like there's no cracks, there's nothing, and it feels like you cannot see a way out. And sometimes you need somebody just to either just kick that door down, to get the hell in, to let the light in, so that you can be like, okay, what's going on? Or for you from the inside to start chiseling away, to start making a little hole in the wall, or to try and see a crack or something. But if you don't
Yeah.
have that strength, the only thing that you have got, and if you don't have that support person, the only thing that you do have is your inner resolve and your inner fortitude and your inner strength, where you at some point go, you know what, the only person who's going to pull this out, or who's going to pull me out of this right now, is me. And I can choose to stay here, and I can choose to be a victim to whatever it is that's going on for me, or I can find a little place, a little bit of strength within me, where I strike a match and I hold it, like that story from way back, the little match girl or whatever it was, where you just hold that flame, and you know that wherever light is, darkness cannot exist. So if you've got a little bit of light going, you can see where you're going, even if it is just this far in front of your face, but it gives you the feeling that you're not being suffocated by everything else in your world. So you find that place for yourself, and you grow it, and you nurture it, and you feed it, and all the while you're in a really, really dark place, and you keep working. I love that when you look at yourself and you get compassion for yourself, and you give yourself some grace to go through what it is that you're going through, but you're also using your experiences to make you stronger, to get you up off the floor, to get you onto your knees, to get you with one foot up, to get you shaking and standing up, to get you standing up tall with the shoulders on the back, wearing your armor, because you are now stronger and you're more resilient, and anybody in this place right now is that if you don't have a support network, if you can't reach out, you mentioned that there's some telehealth appointments that you can make with certain counselors out there who may be able to help. But if you can't afford that, and if you can't get subsidies like we were talking about earlier, the
Yeah.
only thing that you can do, if you do not have a support network and you don't have anybody that you can reach out to, would be to look inward and to find, what can I do right now to help me? Because if I can do this, I'm telling myself, and I am believing in myself, that I am strong enough to do this. And this is not going to beat me. This is not going to make me flatten down. This is not going to knock me back down again. I'm going to sit on my throne one more time. You just watch me, world. It's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get there. Right?
Yeah. There are different ways of boosting yourself up towards that too. It's one of the things I love is where you realize that I'm trying to remember how it goes now. So you think to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. And the fact that I'm suffering doesn't make me weird or strange or alone, because actually a lot of people go through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that would help people in this sort of lockdown period, is that understanding that a lot of people are feeling this way too. It gives you that sense of community, or that connection, that even though you don't necessarily have that physically, just knowing that, okay, well, this is normal to feel like this, or freak out, or whatever,
And it's okay.
Yeah, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. Oh, if I had $1 every time I freaked out.
But every time you do it, you start to recognize the signs and the symptoms, right? And you start to go, you know what, that didn't work last time when I gave in to them. So I'm going to try this, whatever it is. And okay, that worked a little bit, but it didn't quite work. Okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit of that, and I'm going to try something else. So each time you are trying to solve the things that are affecting you, because that's going to bring your control back, right? That's going to, instead of it being other circumstances, COVID-19, for example, it's all COVID's fault that I'm feeling like how I'm feeling. It's like, well, no, COVID was going to happen regardless of how you were feeling. It didn't do it to you. You know, it didn't pick you and go, I'm going to get you, I'm going to make you feel bad. It's not. It's affecting everybody, but how we react is entirely up to us.
Definitely. I mean, it's all connected. You hear people saying, "Oh, they made me feel like this and that." It's like, no, I think you chose to, because you have the thoughts, and we don't control our thoughts. Generally speaking, I mean, our mind is going flat tack all day. It's what it's designed to do. It's the ones that we choose to engage with, and when you engage with a thought, then obviously there may be some emotions that come with that, and then all sorts of physiological stuff as well. You know, this is why people, when they get anxious, they start feeling like there's something wrong with their body and all that sort of thing. Some people like to think of it as leaves in a river, and you've got this leaf. You see the leaf floating down the river. That's a thought. It could be a horrible thought, could be a nice thought. The idea is not to actually judge anything, and also remember that just because you're thinking it doesn't mean it's true. Exactly. I don't believe anything my head tells me, because you know.
And that's about discernment, right? It's a word that's coming up quite a lot. You know, is this a thought that I actually want to own? Do I want to give this thought attention? You know, there's Abraham Hicks, which is a really interesting, if you want to look it up, anybody on YouTube or on Facebook, there's a belief system around the fact that thoughts they become things. Thoughts have weight, and so when you think something, you are adding weight to it, and it's a real thing that you then attract to yourself. So if you're having a negative thought, whatever it might be, I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, COVID is going to break my business, you know, I'm going to slip back into depression or anxiety, or this is going to trigger my PTSD. Okay, well, you know what? You've just created this, you know, to come to you because you've thought it and you've put energy behind it. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't have that thought and just be like, oh, wait a minute. I'm just going to acknowledge it, and I'm going to put a positive spin on it. And instead of going, this is going to trigger my PTSD, I might be like, you know, I am exactly where I'm meant to be in life. Everything is under control. I'm guided. And then you give that weight, and then you put that positive energy out. And by default, I understand that that positive energy comes back to you. And maybe it's something as simple as that, just to get started with, and even just to gain insight into that. I understand that with mental health, you know, you have got recurring thoughts that go on in your head, you know, and it's like a snowball effect. You think one bad thought, and you think another one, and you think another one, and eventually you've got this, you know, this avalanche of snowballs coming down the mountain, and you're like, I'm done, I'm out, you know. And then you wait until the sun's come out and the snow's melted, and you can pick yourself back up again and climb back up the mountain. You know, whereas if we were able to catch that snowball when it was still in our hand and actually go, no, I don't want that snowball, then you know, maybe that's a start, especially for people who don't feel like they have got the ability to reach out to anybody.
I find control is like self-control is a huge thing. People get scared of not being in control.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I used to stop when I have the intrusive thoughts and they're just coming, is I just go, so what? And that's like, some people have a fear, like they've got health anxiety. I also have health anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm lying in bed and I'm thinking, oh, that doesn't feel good. Am I going to die now? And then it goes over in my head and I go, oh, well, if I do, I do. You know, like, me worrying about it's not going to change that. And for me to be in that position now, I mean, 20 years ago, I would have probably been in the hospital by then. But, you know, it's just about how you react, excuse me, to those thoughts and to what's going on around you. I like to think of it like, if you imagine that you're a tree and it's windy, and so life is the wind and you're the tree, and you just bend and flow, like it's ebbing and flowing with things. So not feeling like you need to be in control of absolutely everything. Just go with the flow of life, because that, you know, we're born to move. We're not creatures that should be sedentary and sitting down all the time. Like, we're supposed to be moving. in every aspect.
Yeah, I mean, our body's got such a high percentage of water in it that if we don't move and if we don't bend with it, we're going to break like that tree that's like fighting the wind. You know, here it comes, and then we're going to break. But also, you know, water that doesn't move becomes stagnant, and
Yeah,
that's not healthy for our any aspect of our health, our physical health, emotional, mental, spiritual health at all. So I like that. I think we go with the ebb and flow of life. We ride this wave, we see where this wave is actually going to end up taking us and on which shores we're going to land by the time it is finished, and how different it is that we're going to be at the end of the ride.
definitely. And that's a great point about movement. A lot of people with anxiety, for example, struggle to go out for walks or gym or anything like that. You don't even need that. I mean, just walk outside of your house and stare at a tree. You know, go with bare feet, stand on the grass, feel some, you know, feel the world around you, and that you could do that for 5 minutes, and the mental health benefits from that are like an hour's walk. Honestly, it's.
Yeah.
I think the Japanese do it. There's actually a name for it, and they actually it's something that doctors say to people. You need some of this treatment, and it's literally just being in nature.
Yeah.
It does change how you view everything.
Yeah. And coming to, you know, if you were outside on the grass or taking a look at the tree, or, you know, I guess getting into that state of being present, you have the small window there to just stop and to express gratitude for where you are, the fact that you're alive, the fact that you are unaffected by COVID. You can feel the grass, you're able to walk, you can smell the flowers, you can feel the wind. You know, you've got a house that you've just walked out of, it's got a gate, you know, you've got cool things, you know, and that you will get through this. You know, we're, as a human race, we are designed to adapt, and we're designed to be able to go wherever it is that we want to go, and the only people who are holding us back are ourselves, right?
Yep.
So if we can use this time now to spend time with ourselves, to feel grateful each day, you know, to go outside, to do whatever it is that we need to for our mental health space, then we are using our time wisely. You know, we are being proactive in our own health care. And then at the end of it, if we're feeling like we're in a stronger place, maybe then we can ask for support, or go and seek medical advice, or go and seek, you know, counseling or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say another thing. Routine is really good. A lot of people, there may be some people working from home, but a lot of people will not be working. And so it's sort of like a weird holiday, and it's, you know, after a couple of days it starts to get like so things like, I mean, with Asperger's, I love routine for me is great, and when something changes then I tend to fall apart a bit. So
Yeah.
routine for me is great. So, you know, whether it's like still getting up at a certain time every morning, that's one thing I do for depression, is that if I'm really depressed and don't want to do anything, I still get up and have a shower. If I get back into bed, that's fine, but at least I got up and had my shower.
Yeah, you can tick that box, done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just like, oh yeah, I feel good. I did something. I was, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. But also, see, for me, I'm a massive introvert in many ways. I'm also an extrovert as well. I'm ambi something. I don't know if there's a word for that.
I like
But
it.
so, you know, being at home, there's 7 adults here, and I'm like, oh no, too many people. I don't like this. So, and that's where, like, you know, listening to music, meditation, going outside, spending some time in nature, anything. Like, you don't even need to leave the house, and it doesn't cost a cent.
I love that. So what would be your key message to anybody who is currently undergoing any concerns or issues with their mental health? What would you say to them right now to help them get through this period of lockdown?
Be kind to yourself, 100%. I mean, that above all, be kind to yourself. And perhaps remembering that as humans, we see the world as we are, not as it is.
Yeah.
And so other people around you might be quite, you know, tempers are going to fray, I think. I mean, there's there's all sorts of things that can go when people are in close quarters and they're kind of stuck there for a while. So it's just remembering that everyone's feeling it in some point, in some way or another, and they're going to deal with it in their own way, hopefully in a nice way. But it's just being aware that you're not the only one who's struggling. It's really easy, especially if you've got mental health issues, to say, everyone's got this amazing life and mine is terrible. And it's like, no, it's just the way that you're really good at hiding it, so is everyone else.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. So
Yeah, exactly. And together we're strong.
yeah.
Absolutely. Kurani Masters, thank you so much for everything that you've contributed. It's so wonderful getting, I guess, lived-in experience conversations around mental health, your anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, your depression, and suicide is just such a big topic that we don't talk enough about. So let's hope that through this we're opening up those conversations and we're letting people see that it's a safe thing to talk about. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It just means that we are highlighting the fact that we are aware of it and that we are wanting to help, even if we don't know how to. Teach us how to help you if this is how you are feeling, especially at these really, really tough times. So, Kurani, thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your story with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.